All right, buckle up, everybody, because today we are diving headfirst into the Kenyan Constitution. And trust me, this is going to be a wild ride.
Ooh, I like that energy.
You guys asked for it, excerpts, legal documents, the whole shebang. Are you ready to make this journey both understandable and unforgettable?
You bet. And what's so cool about the Kenyan Constitution is it's not just some boring old legal document, it's a story.
Okay, so no snoozing allowed on this deep dive. It's a roadmap of Kenya's past, present, and future.
Yeah, it lays out the values, the goals, the whole vision for the nation. It's really fascinating stuff.
I'm already hooked. I see we've got chapters covering everything from, like, sovereignty to public finance. Plus, hold on, what are these schedules I'm seeing here?
Think of the chapters as the main plot points, right? And the schedules are like those bonus features you get on a DVD.
Okay, I get it. Extra juicy details, behind-the-scenes stuff.
Yeah, exactly. They flesh out the details on things like national symbols, oaths of office, and how power is divided up between different levels of government.
Gotcha. So it's kind of like a choose-your-own-adventure constitution.
No, I like that.
But for this deep dive, we're going thematic, all right?
Yeah.
We're cherry-picking the most interesting bits from each chapter to give you a real taste of how this whole thing works.
Sounds like a plan.
Perfect. Let's kick things off with Chapter 1, the foundation, the bedrock, the ground floor.
The Big Bang.
Right, sovereignty, that big, often intimidating S word. What's the deal with Article 1?
Oh, Article 1, that's the heart and soul of the whole thing, really. It states that all sovereign power belongs to the people of Kenya.
So, like, straight up, we the people are in charge.
Exactly. It's not granted by any king or ruler or external force. It comes from the people.
Boom. Mic drop. Okay, I'm already feeling empowered.
And to really hammer it home, Article 2 goes on to say that the Constitution is supreme. Any law that contradicts it, bye-bye.
Gone.
Not over here. It really sets the stage for a system where the people's voice is reflected in the law of the land.
Makes sense to me. You can't build a house on shaky ground, right? Now, Article 7, this one dives into languages.
Okay.
I'm guessing that's a pretty big deal in a country as diverse as Kenya.
It is. You've got so many different cultures and communities, each with their own language and heritage.
Right.
So Article 7 recognizes Kiswahili as the national language and both Kiswahili and English as the official languages.
Okay, so those are the big ones.
But here's where it gets really cool. It also emphasizes promoting all Kenyan languages, plus formats like Kenyan Sign Language and Braille.
Wow, that's impressive.
It's about inclusivity.
It's not just about picking favorites, but acknowledging and respecting the full tapestry of languages that makes Kenya what it is.
Right on.
Now, a question that pops into my head whenever we look at a new constitution, what about religion? Is there an official state religion in Kenya?
Nope, not at all. Article 8 is crystal clear. There shall be no state religion.
Straight to the point?
It's a commitment to religious freedom and pluralism. Everyone can practice their own faith without any interference or favoritism from the state.
Love it. So just to recap, we've established that Kenya is a sovereign republic where power comes from the people.
Yeah.
It values diversity and inclusivity, both in terms of language and religion, but who gets to officially call themselves Kenyan? That's what I want to know. So let's move on to Chapter 3, citizenship, and unlock that mystery.
Okay, let's do it. This is where it gets really interesting because, citizenship is something we often take for granted.
Totally.
But it's actually a really complex concept with all these legal, social, even emotional dimensions. It's a big deal.
It is. So let's break it down. What does Article 14 say about citizenship by birth?
Article 14 lays out the basics. If you're born in Kenya to at least one Kenyan parent, you're automatically a citizen.
All right, so that's the classic born on the soil idea.
Exactly. It's a common principle around the world. But what about people who weren't born in Kenya but want to become citizens?
That's what I'm curious about.
Well, for that, we jump to Article 15, and it offers several paths to citizenship by registration.
Okay, so there are options.
You can become Kenyan through marriage, to a citizen after 7 years, of course. Or you can become a citizen through residency again, at least 7 years of living in Kenya. And even adoption by a Kenyan citizen can grant you citizenship.
So it's like Kenya's saying, hey, if you love this country and you're committed to making it your home, we're open to welcoming you with open arms.
That's a beautiful way to put it. It's a reflection of an open and welcoming society.
I love that. But it's not just a one-way street, right?
Oh, you're right. Citizenship comes with responsibilities, too, not just rights and privileges.
Okay, so remind us what kind of responsibilities come with being a Kenyan citizen.
Well, Article 16 outlines situations where citizenship can actually be revoked, like if you obtained it through fraud or if you commit certain serious crimes.
So no funny business.
Exactly. It emphasizes that citizenship is a privilege earned and maintained through upholding the values and laws of the nation.
Makes sense. Okay, we've covered a lot of ground already. We've explored the foundations: sovereignty, language, religion, and citizenship. We've got the building blocks of this nation figured out. But how does the Kenyan Constitution actually protect individual rights? What kind of freedoms and protections does it guarantee to the people? That's what I'm dying to know.
That, my friend, is an excellent question.
I agree.
And the answer lies in Chapter 4, the heart and soul of any constitution. The Bill of Rights. Ah, yes, the Bill of Rights. This is where it gets real, where those big ideas about freedom and equality actually translate into tangible protections for every single person in Kenya.
This is where the rubber meets the road for the Kenyan people.
Yeah.
Give me the rundown. What kind of rights are we talking about here?
Well, it's a pretty comprehensive list, and it covers everything from those classic civil liberties that, we often take for granted to newer rights like the right to a clean environment. You've got freedom of expression, freedom of assembly, freedom of religion, right to life, right to privacy, the whole shebang.
Wow, sounds like they really covered all the bases. But let's be real. There are times when maybe some of these rights need to be, limited. I mean, in the real world, absolute freedom can sometimes lead to chaos, right?
You're absolutely right. And the Kenyan Constitution actually recognizes that there needs to be a balance. Article 24, it outlines very specific conditions under which limitations on rights are allowed.
Okay, so it's not just a free-for-all. There are rules even for limiting rights.
Absolutely. Any limitation has to be prescribed by law, first of all. It has to have a legitimate aim, like protecting public safety or national security, and it has to be necessary and proportionate to achieve that aim. You can't just randomly decide to restrict people's freedoms.
So it's like finding that sweet spot between individual rights and the needs of society as a whole. It sounds like Kenya has put a lot of thought into this. Now, I'm curious, are there any rights that are just totally untouchable no matter what, like even in extreme situations?
Yes, there are. Article 25 lays out what are called non-derogable rights, meaning they can never be limited, even in a state of emergency.
What kind of rights are we talking about here?
Well, you have freedom from torture, freedom from cruel or degrading treatment, freedom from slavery, right to a fair trial, the right to the right to challenge your detention.
Wow, those are some heavy hitters. That's really reassuring to know that the Kenyan Constitution places such importance on human dignity and fairness, even in the toughest of times.
They are the bedrock of a just and humane society.
Okay, I'm really starting to get a sense of how much this Bill of Rights empowers the Kenyan people. But now let's zoom in on some specifics, shall we? I'm really intrigued by Article 26, the right to life. What's the deal with that?
Well, this is obviously a fundamental right, but it also touches on a very sensitive issue, and that's abortion. The Kenyan Constitution, it generally prohibits abortion unless certain specific conditions are met.
So it's restrictive, but not completely absolute.
Exactly. Abortion is allowed in situations where, a trained health professional determines that it's necessary for emergency treatment or to save the mother's life. And there's also a little bit of leeway for other written laws to potentially permit abortion in certain cases.
It sounds like they were trying to strike a balance and navigate some really complex ethical and medical considerations there. All right, what about freedom of expression? That's a big one. Are there any limitations on that?
Article 33, that guarantees freedom of expression, including the freedom to, seek information, receive information, and impart ideas. It covers everything from artistic creativity and academic freedom to scientific research.
No, you can't just yell fire in a crowded theater.
Exactly. You got it. There are exceptions like inciting violence, hate speech, or propaganda for war. These are all pretty reasonable limits, don't you think?
Yeah, they are. It's all about finding that balance, right? Like, your freedom to swing your arm stops where my nose begins.
Yeah, there you go.
Now, I'm looking at this list, and I see so many other rights listed here, like The right to property, right to fair labor practices, even a right to a clean and healthy environment. It's really quite impressive.
Oh, it is. It really reflects Kenya's commitment to social justice and equality. And some of these rights have really fascinating little details.
Ooh, give me an example. What kind of details?
Well, let's take the right to property in Article 40. This doesn't just cover your physical possessions, it includes intellectual property as well. It recognizes that in today's world, your ideas and creations have value too.
So like if I were to invent some amazing gadget or write a best-selling novel, the Constitution's got my back.
You got it. It provides a legal framework for safeguarding your intellectual property rights so that no one can just steal your ideas and profit from them.
That's good to know. All right, this right to a clean and healthy environment in Article 42, this seems pretty forward-thinking.
Yeah.
What can you tell me about this one?
Oh, it is. This reflects a growing global awareness of environmental issues, and the Constitution's actually acknowledging that, you know what, clean air, clean water, a healthy ecosystem, these aren't just luxuries, they're absolutely essential for people to thrive and for sustainable development.
So it's not just about individual rights. It's about protecting the collective good for this generation and for future generations.
You said it. It lays the groundwork for environmental stewardship, encouraging a balance between, economic growth and ecological responsibility.
I'm loving this. Okay, so we've seen how the Kenyan Constitution protects individual rights, but how does it actually structure power within the government itself? How does it make sure that no one person or branch becomes too powerful? I'm ready to learn about the checks and balances.
All right, let's dive into that. That takes us to Chapter 7, Representation of the People. This is where we get into the nitty-gritty of elections, the role of Parliament, and this fascinating concept of devolved government.
Democracy in action. Let's start with elections. How does Kenya ensure they are free, fair, and transparent? Because we've all seen how things can get, well, a little messy sometimes when it comes to elections.
Right. Well, that's where the Independent Electoral and Boundaries Commission comes in the IEBC. Article 88, it establishes this independent body that's responsible for overseeing every single aspect of the elections, from registering voters to regulating campaign financing and even enforcing a code of conduct for all those candidates.
Wow, talk about a big job. They're like the referees, making sure everyone plays by the rules.
Exactly. The IEBC is crucial to make sure that the elections reflect the will of the people.
So the people vote. The IEBC keeps things honest, but who are they actually voting for? Tell me about this Kenyan parliament.
All right, so Kenya has what's called a bicameral parliament. That means it has two houses, the National Assembly and the Senate. And Article 94 outlines their different roles and powers.
Ah, the classic separation of powers. Gotta love that.
Right. It's all about balance, making sure that no single branch of government gets too much power. So the National Assembly, which has 349 members, that's the primary legislative body, they're the ones debating and passing the laws. Then you have the Senate, which has 67 members, and they represent the interests of the counties and play a special role in protecting devolution.
Okay, hold on. Devolution. You keep using that word. I need you to break it down for me. What exactly is devolution?
Oh, it's such a cool concept. Devolution, it's this really key feature of the Kenyan Constitution. And Chapter 11 is actually entirely dedicated to it. Basically, the idea is to bring governance closer to the people. It's about empowering local communities to have more control over their own affairs.
So it's not just a top-down system where everything is decided in the capital city.
Exactly. Devolution establishes 47 county governments, and each one of those has a significant degree of autonomy over local matters. Think of it like spreading the power out a bit.
I love that. So each county has its own mini government, so to speak, with elected officials who understand the specific needs and challenges of that region.
Exactly. And Article 176, it outlines the structure of these county governments. They each have a governor, a deputy governor, and then a county assembly that's responsible for making laws at the county level.
So you've got the national government with the parliament, the president, and then you've got 47 county governments, each with their own structure and powers. That's awesome.
It's like a multi-layered cake of governance.
I like that. A delicious way to describe it. It's like having the best of both worlds. You can have a strong national identity while also giving local communities the power to shape their own destiny.
Exactly. And this system reflects Kenya's commitment to participatory governance, making sure that everyone has a voice. But we've only just scratched the surface of how power works in Kenya.
There's more. I'm all ears. What other juicy details are hidden in this constitution?
We haven't even talked about the judiciary yet. the courts, how do they make sure there's justice for everyone? How do they uphold the rule of law? That's all covered in Chapter 10, and it's a really crucial piece of the puzzle.
Let's do it. I'm ready to break down this Kenyan justice system and see how it all works. Okay, so we've journeyed through the heart of Kenya, exploring everything from its core values to how power is structured and those individual rights that are so carefully protected. But we can't wrap up this deep dive without talking about the judiciary.
Right. Oh, absolutely. The courts are essential. They're like the guardians of the Constitution.
I like that. The guardians.
Yeah, they're the ones who interpret the law, settle disputes, and really ensure that justice is served for all Kenyans.
Makes sense. So, Chapter 10, the judiciary. This is where we see those high ideals of justice and fairness actually being put into practice.
And the Kenyan Constitution, it takes the independence of the judiciary very seriously. I mean, Article 160 is crystal clear. The courts are bound only by the Constitution and the law, period.
No political pressure, no outside influence.
Nope. The judges are free to make their decisions based solely on the law, regardless of who might be trying to sway them.
That is so important, that independence is what allows them to uphold the rule of law and guarantee equal justice for everyone, no matter their background or their connections.
Exactly.
So I'm getting a sense of just how crucial the judiciary is, but how is it structured? What does the court system actually look like in Kenya?
Well, they follow a hierarchical system, with the Supreme Court right at the top, of course. Article 163 outlines everything about it, the composition, the jurisdiction, the whole 9 yards.
Okay, so let's break that down.
It's made up of the Chief Justice, the Deputy Chief Justice, and 5 other judges. They are the final word on legal matters in Kenya.
7 justices, the top legal minds in the country. What kind of cases land on their desks?
They have exclusive original jurisdiction over presidential election disputes.
Oh, wow. So when those really close elections happen and there's all that controversy.
Yeah, it's the Supreme Court that steps in and makes the final decision.
Talk about pressure. I can see why those Supreme Court rulings get so much attention. But do they handle every single type of case?
No, not really. Mostly they hear appeals from the Court of Appeal and the other lower courts, especially on matters of constitutional interpretation.
So, like, if a lower court makes a ruling that might not be in line with the Constitution, you can appeal all the way up to the Supreme Court for a final review.
Exactly. They're the ultimate protectors of the Constitution, making sure that all the laws and decisions are in harmony with its principles.
I love that. Checks and balances all the way up. You mentioned a Court of Appeal. Tell me more about that one. Where does it fit in?
The Court of Appeal, it's established under Article 164, and it's basically that middle ground in the court system.
Got it.
They handle appeals from the High Court, and the High Court, outlined in Article 165, that one deals with a whole bunch of cases, criminal and civil. It also plays a big role in safeguarding fundamental rights.
So there's a clear path, right? Cases move up through the system, from the lower courts all the way to the top. But what about access to justice? Is that something that's guaranteed for everyone in Kenya? Or do you need to be wealthy and connected to have your day in court?
Oh no, that's a core principle enshrined right in the Kenyan Constitution. Article 48 is crystal clear. The state has to ensure access to justice for all persons.
Love that.
And any court fees have to be reasonable. They can't be a barrier for people seeking justice.
That's so important. No one should be priced out of justice. But access is just the first step. What about the right to a fair trial? How does Kenya ensure that everyone, regardless of what they're accused of, gets a fair shake in the legal system?
That's where Article 50 comes in. This article is like a shield, protecting the rights of accused persons.
Okay, break it down for me.
It guarantees things like the presumption of innocence, right? Until proven guilty, the right to a lawyer, the right to remain silent, protection from self-incrimination. They can't be forced to testify against themselves. And, of course, the right to appeal a verdict.
Wow, those are some serious safeguards. It's like the Constitution is saying we're going to treat everyone with respect and dignity, even those accused of crimes, and we're going to make sure the process is fair and impartial.
Exactly. And that's really what a just and humane legal system is all about. Preventing wrongful convictions, protecting the innocent, making sure everyone is treated fairly under the law.
We have covered so much in this deep dive. I mean, we've explored so much, from sovereignty and language to citizenship, individual rights, how parliament works, the court system. It's clear that the Kenyan Constitution is a really complex and fascinating document.
And it's all connected. It all works together, to create this framework for a nation that's striving for justice, equality, progress. It's like a living embodiment of the hopes and dreams of the Kenyan people.
This deep dive has been such a journey, but for you listening, this is just the beginning, really. We've given you the roadmap, but now it's your turn to explore further. What part stood out to you? What questions do you have? What aspects of this Kenyan Constitution are you now burning to learn more about?
And remember, a constitution, it's not a static thing. It evolves, it adapts, it changes as society changes. So keep learning, keep asking those questions, and keep engaging with these ideas that are shaping Kenya's path.
And that's a wrap on our deep dive into the Kenyan Constitution. We hope you've enjoyed it as much as we have. Until next time, keep those brains buzzing.